everyone, I'm Maria Shakil and you're watching NDTV. India has seen a spectacular success with the G20 summit, a year-long event organized all across the country. Thousands of women and men worked tirelessly all day and night for weeks before the heads of states met this weekend and during the actual meet. Over the next 30 minutes, meet the women and men behind the G20 success. The reason why India's presidency was called a people's presidency. Over 200 hours of non-stop negotiations, and then finally the historic New Delhi Declaration was signed. I've come to meet Mr. Amitabh Kant, the G20 Sherpa, who will be introducing his team to us and giving us a sense of this secretariat where he joined in June 2022. Mr. Kant, really appreciate your time and thank you for speaking to NDTV. Sir, you moved here in June 2022. What changed from then? And were you as optimistic as you look like a satisfied man today that you'll be able to really manage what was seen as unthinkable?
Well, when I joined here, I was used to the hustle and bustle of Niti Aayog. This was a very quiet place. But slowly I realized that we were going to get into very complex, very tough negotiations. So you had to be very professionally prepared. You had to be very thorough. You had to know what different stands countries will take, how they have taken stands in different global meets all over. And you had to master their stands in United Nations and COPs, and there is no substitute for hard work in that. So we had to work really hard for that. We had to issue our own issue notes and see what has been the perspective of all the other 20 countries plus the 9 invited countries in various meetings all over the world.
So should we say it is on this conference table that everything was sealed?
No, all over the G20 Secretariat. I think we sat and worked, we put our head down, and then we, in various meetings, our ministerial colleagues worked, and this was quite a delegated responsibility actually. So you have 13 working groups in the Sherpa track, you have 8 finance tracks, you have in addition to that, you have a lot of engagement groups which hosted meetings all over. So we've had about 220 meetings in 60 cities of India. And we've seen a lot of negotiations all through.
And how did you come to that number, that every Indian city has to be involved in some way, that brand Narendra Modi style of diplomacy cannot be New Delhi centric?
No, so Prime Minister's view was that we should do the G20 in every state of India. His view was that we should get the people involved so that it's a people's presidency. So we involved students, we involved universities, we involved model G20s were done in schools, colleges, essay contests were done, a whole range of things were done so that people came to know for the first time what is G20, what is India's stand, what are the issues, everything. We took it to the people, but events were held in about 60 cities of India, and that helped us to improve the infrastructure, the drainage, the sewage, the solid waste, and every state supported us in this endeavor.
And Mr. Kant, we are in this G20 secretariat of yours. There are 3 floors. How does this office work?
Well, we've got several wings here. We've got the substantive wing, we've got the logistic wing, we've got a branding wing, we've got a security wing. All of us have converged, we've integrated, we all work together to see that our substantive, behind G20 essentially there is a leader's declaration which all leaders accept. That is really the key. That is why the leaders summit is held. But to do that, you have to mobilize many ministerial meetings that gets a feedback. The finance track holds this meeting. Everything then gets into the Sherpa track. The final document is prepared at the Sherpa level and then taken to the leaders summit. So that is the challenge of converging, integrating, putting everything together.
And you tweeted about your team members. What was their responsibility?
Well,
Ina Gambhir, and there was one more.
No. We have, I have an additional secretary who's the Sue Sherpa, Mr. Abhay Thakur. He coordinates with all the Sue Sherpas across, and he's coordinated along with me everything. We have Mr. Nagaraj Naidu, who's worked in the United Nations, has extreme experience of drafting, very good, outstanding. And then we have Ashish Sinha, who's also a Foreign Service officer, and Inam Gambhir, who's also worked in the United Nations. So Abhay was the overall coordinator. Ashish Sinha worked on several issues, including disaster risk resilience, trade, and many other things. He looked after a few ministerials, but finally he played a key role in working with China, and Naidu and Inam played a key role in the global geopolitics area along with me. So it was all coordinated work, very structured, very well coordinated.
And 200 hours of no sleep.
I think more than that. Actually, we started on the 3rd, and from 3rd till about the summit time, that is till 11th end, we had not slept at all. So it was hard negotiations, but we had to clinch it. The Prime Minister had said that it must be all consensus. India must bring in consensus in a fractured world. And our challenge was that there were several issues on climate, on energy, on geopolitics. There were many challenges. So we had to bring everybody around. And we negotiated with a lot of clarity of mind that eventually we must achieve consensus. That was the end objective. And we did some really tough negotiations. We really pushed the limits hard. We did a lot of brinkmanship. We took it to the end. We took it right till the end. And that was because of our own confidence of doing some gutsy, courageous negotiation, because we were clearly backed by our leader, in this case the Prime Minister, because we were very clear that his stature and his standing in the global arena would help us. And when we were getting down to the wire on geopolitics, we had to fall back on his stature and his standing and the elevated stature of India under his leadership. And that's why we pushed really hard, and we succeeded, fortunately.
हमारी टीम्स के हार्डवर्क से और आप सभी के सहयोग से नई दिल्ली G20 लीडर्स समिट डिक्लेरेशन पर सहमति बनी है। मेरा प्रस्ताव है कि इस लीडर्स डिक्लेरेशन को भी एडॉप्ट किया जाए। मैं इस डिक्लेरेशन को एडॉप्ट करने की घोषणा करता हूं।
And Mr. Kant, that very moment when after the lunch break, Prime Minister announces that there has been a success, a breakthrough, what was that communication that was made to the Prime Minister? Who called him to say that the announcement can happen?
No, we had run into some last minute challenges on a bilateral issue between China and United States. We were sorting that out, and we sat and worked it out. I mean, it was not a issue which could not be sorted out. So we sorted out, and once that was sorted out, we had all countries on board. So then Mr. Jaishankar informed the Prime Minister that we were ready and we could have the announcement done. So we preponed it. We didn't want to wait till the last minute, and we got the announcement done, and that was adopted. But the fact was that the geopolitical issue was a complex one, the climate issue was a complex one, the energy issue was a complex one. All of them had played out in the last 10 days, and we were able to find a solution.
And interestingly, this document, and I've been reading a lot of reactions, it is about this diplomatic dexterity in many ways, that just about every country seemed to be reading it in their favor. How did you manage that? How many back and forth happened?
So I think we had been working on the document for the last 2.5 months. It was drafted very, very strongly with the perspective. Actually, while I had prepared the initial draft, this is a co-creation exercise. It is cross-cutting. So we received a lot of inputs from different countries. Many of those inputs we had incorporated. And then the negotiations begin on the draft. And that's a very tough, arduous process. So we've done about almost close to 30 rounds of virtual negotiation. We had about 90% of the draft already sealed before the last Sherpa meeting began. And in the last Sherpa meeting, we took it down to the wires. So we got the climate and finance closed 2 days before. And then we almost 6 days before we had started the negotiations on the geopolitical issue, which was going to be very tough, very complex. But we had to start on a clean slate. The Bali para had not held, and therefore we started on a clean slate by starting out with some principles. Then we got the principles of other countries. We got the viewpoints of China, Russia. We prepared the first draft. We got South Africa, Brazil and Indonesia all with us. And then one after another, 15 drafts. We got everybody's viewpoint. And then we...
I want to know, you have, you would be privy to several G20s that have happened. What was the urgency of making that announcement on day one itself?
This was done in Bali as well. Bali was also tough. So it was important that as soon as we have agreement of all countries, we should be able to announce it. And we had agreement of all countries. We wanted to announce it and put everything on record, and that's what we did. We didn't, we moved forward. This document is important because it establishes that India is the only country in the world which under Prime Minister Modi is able to bring developing countries and the developed world together. It has brought multilateralism center stage. It has brought a huge India narrative center stage. It has brought women development and women empowerment and gender equality center stage of this story, and it has brought many other things. But I think the important thing is that last several years we've not seen a strong multilateral institution bringing out a strong documents on growth, on progress, on SDGs, all that we've done.
Did having a woman on the team help?
Of course it did. That brings in greater inclusivity, and the Prime Minister wanted our G20 to be very inclusive. So our inclusiveness knows no bound, from women to African countries, because we were very clear that this year 80% of the growth is coming from emerging countries. And IMF has said that 2/3 of the growth for the next 2 decades will come from emerging countries. And therefore, Global South has to be a key central point of our presidency. So this is one document where out of any document that you'd read anywhere, this is one document which brings the voice of the Global South center stage. It has never happened before.
In terms of numbers, how many people work in this building?
So there'll be about 350 people working in the building. They'll be working on logistics, they'll be working on substantive side, they're working on branding, they're working on several areas.
So all of them are heroes for you?
Everyone is a hero. They've all done great work. They've done outstanding work. For me, the team is very important. Without this team, I would not have been able to deliver. Without Prime Minister's leadership, his stature and standing, his constant support to us, his constant intervention, we would not have. We always had this confidence that you have a strong leader at the back. If you have a strong leader at the back, then you can push the limits. And we really pushed the limits. We did brinkmanship to the ultimate in this.
And those hours, the last few hours when you were negotiating, what was it like? Did you at any moment think that perhaps, the Western media may get it right, the analysts may get it right, that this is not possible, that our Delhi declaration may not happen? Were you at any point hopeless?
So when we did the negotiations, we did several things. When we brought in the Sherpas, we ensured that there were no telephones in the room, because leakage to media would have been the worst thing. One leakage and the whole effort would have gone. So we kept journalists like you outside, miles away. And second thing is, we did the event 60 miles away from Delhi in Manesar. We locked up everyone to do the negotiations.
And locked up for 200 hours.
Yeah, and we did it for close to 200 hours negotiation, 15 drafts non-stop. We didn't allow anything to come out to media people like you.
Yes.
We've
Why are you emphasizing on people like me? You expect certainly the journalists were inquisitive, and rightly so, because nobody was giving India a chance.
So the challenge was that if anything had leaked out anywhere, and it was not just you, it was media from the western part of the world, from Russia, many other places. They all wanted information of what is happening. We didn't allow that. No mobiles were allowed. And we finally, when everything was struck, we gave them the final document, and we said, this is it. And you
Who
can now...
negotiated on that paragraph on Ukraine to make it acceptable to the Russians, to the West, to UK, US, everyone?
So I was leading the negotiation, but I had the support of the Brazilian Sherpa, Mauricio. I had the support of the South African Sherpa, Zen, who was a very good international expert. Mauricio was a very good diplomat. And I had the assistance of, finally I brought in Jani, who was the Indonesian Sherpa, because I wanted the Troika also to work. And I had really Nagraj Naidu was a top class drafter, and I had all the enthusiasm and motivation and support of young Enam Gambhir. So we made a very formidable team, very determined to deliver, and determined to deliver at our end, and with the full confidence of the Prime Minister. Our leader is the Prime Minister, and only his Sherpa. The Prime Minister's directive was that our presidency must be ambitious, it must be inclusive, it must be decisive, it must be actionable, and we must strive to get 100% consensus.
What next in terms of the next 2 months? Because the Prime Minister has said that there will be another round of meeting in November perhaps.
So next round means ki we can't play golf, we can't do anything, we'll have to get back to work again tomorrow. So we started work all over again. So Prime Minister is a tough hard master, so he's already made us get down to work. From the day we finished, we got down to work already to see what all we can deliver in terms of execution, how we can get other countries to deliver, and we'll be working towards the virtual summit now, which will be again a lot of hard work. Because you have to prepare before the Leaders Summit. So we are back into work again.
Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV and sharing your thoughts, and of course talking about your team.
Thank you.
Everybody wanted to know about Team Amitabh Kant, so thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
And at G20, India showcased a cultural corridor that featured the shared cultural heritage of the G20 nations. Parimal Kumar, my colleague, spoke to the team that conceived and implemented the cultural corridor. Listen in.
इस वक्त हम भारत मंडपम में कल्चर कॉरिडोर में हैं। आप कल्चर कॉरिडोर में देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से अलग अलग देशों की जो सांस्कृतिक विरासत है वहां से मंगवाई गई है और इसको रखा गया है ग्लास में। और हमारे साथ लिली पांडे हैं जो ज्वाइंट सेक्रेटरी है कल्चर मिनिस्ट्री की। मैम, कितनी मशक्कत करनी पड़ी, कितने लोगों की मेहनत, और तब जाके ये साकार हो पाए?
जब इतनी सुंदर कोई चीज बनती है तो उसके पीछे बहुत मेहनत लगती है, और बेशक बहुत ज्यादा मेहनत हुई। मेरी पूरी टीम इसमें लगी रही। जब से इसकी कंसेप्चुअलाइजेशन हुई, दैट वाज अर्ली ऑन जनवरी फरवरी में, तब से हम लोगों ने पूरे मेंबरशिप के साथ, यानी कि G20 कंट्रीज और इनवाइटी नेशंस के साथ बात करना शुरू किया। 3 तो नोट बरबाल गए। G20 सेक्रेटेरिएट शेरपा ऑफिस ने हमारी बहुत मदद की, और मेरी खुद की टीम ने हजारों मेल्स लिखे, कितने सारे बायलैटरल्स हुए। जो हमारी 4 कल्चर वर्किंग ग्रुप की मीटिंग हुई, उस दौरान हम लोगों ने पूरे मेंबरशिप को एंगेज किया बहुत इंटेंसली, और सबसे हम लोगों ने अनुरोध किया कि वो इसमें पार्टिसिपेट करें, इसमें भागीदारी करें। और डिजिटल सबमिशन आई फ्रांस से मोनालिसा की। उसके बाद आई थिंक इट रियली टुक ऑन, एंड सब ने फिर देना शुरू किया, और सबमिशंस बिल्कुल अंत तक आई हैं। तो आई एम वेरी वेरी प्राउड ऑफ द वेरी हार्ड वर्क डन बाय माय टीम। एक्चुअली हम लोगों ने जब इसे कंसेप्चुअलाइज किया था तो ये हमें आइडिया बड़ा एलिगेंट और बड़ा सिंपल लगा था, और हमें पूरी उम्मीद थी कि सबको ये अच्छा लगेगा। और तो हम लोगों ने अपने मन में ठान लिया था और हम लोगों ने बिल्कुल नहीं सोचा था कि हम कामयाब नहीं होंगे, और यही कारण था कि हम लोग बिल्कुल लगे रहे और बहुत परसुएट किया सारे देशों को। कुछ कंट्रीज तो बिल्कुल लेट सबमिशन आई, उनकी बहुत ज्यादा बाद में आई, लेकिन हम लोगों ने भी हिम्मत नहीं हारी और मेरी टीम बिल्कुल लगी रही। बहुत सारे बायलैटरल्स हुए और सबने जो है एक सबके मन में आया कि नहीं, इसमें पार्टिसिपेट करना चाहिए और हमें कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहिए। सारे लोग आए और उनके कुरियर्स आए, उनके एम्बेसी वाले आए, उनके सामने ये सब कुछ उनकी वस्तुएं जो थी, जो कलाकृतियां आई हैं, और उनको हमारे क्यूरेटर्स ने मिलकर अपने सामने डिस्प्ले किया। और उसके बाद जब लीडर्स आए हमारे कॉरिडोर में तो हम लोग सब लगा कि जैसे हमारी मेहनत बिल्कुल सफल हुई।
The unsung heroes are construction workers who laid the building blocks for the grand Bharat Mandapam, who in fact with their hard work and toil built the grand venue that hosted more than 20 nations, and of course the sanitation workers who ensured that the venue is kept clean and top notch. I'm leaving you with these visuals. Thanks so much for watching.
All eyes across the world were on the Bharat Mandapam as it hosted the G20 summit. But it is not just a one-person initiative. There were thousands of people who were working together to make this event a success for the whole country. We are being joined by some unsung heroes of the G20 summit who have worked in the hospitality department. This is Vishal Pandey, this is Raj Mishra, and this is Rohit Pandey. So sir, आपका जो एक्सपीरियंस रहा, आपका क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा है ये G20 में काम करने का, और क्या क्या करना पड़ा?
हमारा बहुत ही अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस रहा और कई हमारे मित्र गण जो है वर्कर को लेके जो है इसमें काम करवाए हैं। फिनिशिंग का वगैरह सब काम जो है टेंडर लिया था, इसका करवाया गया है। हम आज बहुत ही खुश हैं कि हमारे भारत में जो है पहली बार G20 का समारोह सम्मेलन हुआ। हम इस चीज़ से बहुत खुश है। जो है कई देश के जो है यहाँ सब आए हुए थे, हम उनको देख करके बहुत ही खुश हुए और हमें मिलने का जो है अवसर प्रदान हुआ उन सब से।
ये भारत मंडपम है जहां पे इस वक्त मौजूद है और यहाँ के साफ सफाई का जिम्मा किनके कंधों पे था और किनसे प्रधानमंत्री ने मुलाकात की और उनको शुक्रिया अदा किया, उस टीम से भी आपको मिलवाने की कोशिश करते हैं।
मोदी जी वहाँ पर आए सर, वो हमसे नमस्ते करी, पूछा हाल चाल कैसे, तुम ठीक हो, थके हुए लग रहे हो, प्यार से पूछा तुम्हारे, अच्छा बहुत काम अच्छा किया उन्होंने। तो यही बात हुई थी हमारे साथ।
और कुछ शुक्रिया अदा भी किया?
बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करो।
क्या कहा
सर ने बोला बहुत आपका आभार रहेगा, तुमने देश के लिए सब कुछ दिन रात एक करा।
थकावट के बाद भी गए थे, लेकिन हमको किसी को थकावट नहीं हो रही थी। हाँ, हमने केवल ये जवाब दिया, सर बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है हमें काम करते हुए, अभी भी हम दिनों रात एक करने के लिए तैयार हैं।
ये वो सफाई कर्मी है जिसे प्रधानमंत्री मोदी मिले जब कार्यक्रम खत्म हो गया, तो ये समझने के लिए, ये जानने के लिए कि इन्होंने किस तरीके से भूमिका निभाई और कहीं इनको कोई शिकायत तो नहीं है। ये भी पूछा कोई शिकायत तो नहीं, थकावट ना?
थकावट के बारे में पूछा तो तुम्हारे चेहरे पे स्माइल नहीं है। हमने बोला ऐसी कोई सर बात नहीं है।